my screen. Right, there we go. You should be able to see that clearly. If anybody has any problems, just give me a quick shout. But yes, so my name's Robin. I am the lead engineer for Barclays Eagle Labs, and I'll give you a bit of an overview of who we are and what we do kind of later in the session. But what I'm going to do is sort of talk to you about my journey, and I guess how I came to be an engineer over in Newcastle upon Tyne. So to give you a bit of background on who I am, and I guess why my career path is a little bit interesting, is I didn't actually start off in engineering. I have a degree in glass and ceramics. I graduated from the University of Sunderland in 2011, which doesn't feel like that long ago, but I guess it probably is now. So I kind of started out an awful lot during my career working with a lot of other artists. So I guess that's a bit of a theme for me, and what I do is I kind of help other people bring things to life. So when I graduated, I worked for a large time kind of with other bits and pieces, mostly focusing on large pieces of work and sort of mechanical processes. So that is a photo of me, much younger, quite a bit thinner, working on a really quite a large tabletop. My specialty was cold working, so that's the cold processing, grinding, polishing, making things shiny, things like that. In about 2011, I also joined a studio which doesn't exist in Sunnyside anymore. The building's still there and it's still art studios, but Creative Cohesion as it was has folded. So what we were an artist network that was based in the Northeast. We were really, really lucky that we got to go out and do a bunch of great things. So I got to exhibit really internationally. I went out and I did an internship in Washington, DC. And I did a number of different kind of exhibitions and trade missions with them, which was a really great insight into business and the way you run a business and the way you make a profit, I guess, and engage with others. Once I did that, I set up a business that was really just working on really large scale pieces. So what I would do is artists would commission me to basically make their work for them, which is really common practice in the art world. But I really started to push really hard into that kind of fabrication side of things. So in terms of this presentation, there's a number of different kind of objects that you can see that I fabricated on behalf of an artist called Kate Watkinson. So she's the founder of Watkinson Associates. Now you might not be super familiar with these pieces, but Kate Watkinson's super prolific in the Northeast. So if you're in the Northeast, if you have a look, there are a number of different benches that are on Granger Street and Grey Street in Newcastle, which have glass backing and marble. Those are all by Kate. And if anybody does that trip along the A1 regularly to get into Newcastle, if you take a look to your right when you're passing the Metro Centre, you'll see a really large kind of open basket with some large metal balls. That's also a piece by kind of Watkinson Associates. So they're really prolific within the Northeast, but they're one of my biggest clients. So what I used to do is kind of take some of these objects that you can see, which are really big. That blue pillar that you can see is about 30, 40 kilos. So it's not the sort of thing you can handle by yourself. And I used to kind of cut and grind them and do that. And I had that business for probably about 7 or 8 years, which I used to do alongside kind of other bits and work. And that's really how I established myself in the Northeast, as someone who can kind of make projects and make things really come to life. I got a fantastic opportunity working with the University of Sunderland in 2016-ish. They were looking for a maternity cover placement for their water jet technician. So the water jet that they have within the glass centre doesn't function like water jets that exist for most manufacturing sites. It's really kind of an end-to-end business where people come to us with ideas. We kind of fabricate it on the water jet cutter and kind of send them along their way, rather than within industry where we might be cutting the same mechanical part over and over again. It's a really flexible role. So I did that for like 8 or 9 months, and that's when I kind of really started to transition away from creative practice into engineering. Then I had a brief stint with Fab Lab Sunderland. So if anyone gets the chance to visit, it's a really fantastic site. It's really, really big. I ended up working for Fab Lab Sunderland for 2 years and managed the space on a really temporary basis. And that's really moving away from kind of my experience with glasswork into kind of digital fabrication. So within Fab Lab Sunderland, they've got 3D printers, they've got CNC, laser cutter, vinyl cutter, very mirror image of the sort of stuff we've got in Eagle Labs, but they're really based within the university. So they have a real community and student focus. But yeah, so I was in that site for a little while, and I was working kind of part-time, still supplementing myself with other work. And someone from Eagle Labs came in one day to ask some questions about the 3D printers, and they were saying, you know what, look, we're looking to hire an engineer in Newcastle. Do you know anyone who would be good for this role? And I said, you know what, yeah, me. And that was 3 years ago. So that was my that was the beginning of my journey within kind of Eagle Labs. So this is the office in Newcastle. This, granted, is when it first opened. So they've got a lot more stuff in here now. When you see my camera, you'll see it's fairly chaotic back here now because we work with a lot of businesses. But we're based in Newcastle on Granger Street. We're just next door to Guitar Guitar. And what our focus primarily is to start businesses, both startups, scale up, and kind of high growth corporate businesses. We have a site here with a number of different businesses on site who rent kind of office space off us or desk space off us, but I'm in one of the offices here, and what I do is I sit in space to help businesses prototype new ideas. People will come to me with an idea. It might be a fully formulated design, or it might be literally something on the back of a napkin, and they'll come in and say, can we make this? So we'll sit down together and work through various different types of prototypes. Mostly in this site it's 3D printing, but we do a little bit of laser cutting, a little bit of electronic fabrication as well. And I'm going to take you through some examples of some of the businesses that we've worked with, and some of the bits and pieces that we do. But yeah, so this is Newcastle. If you want to come and visit, drop me an email. I'm more than happy to give tours and kind of talk through bits and pieces. So Eagle Labs ourselves, we are the UK's largest business accelerator. We are currently sited in 27 sites across the UK. There are one or two on this list that are up and coming, so there'll be a couple more coming in April. But we have a massive number of programs, and engineering that I work in is just one of them. So if you're looking to start up a business, you can come to us and get support with mentoring. We've got support with funding readiness, which will guide you through kind of what you do for investment or crowdfunding or grant funding applications. We've got a number of different programs that specifically look at different industries. So that might be agriculture, we've got law, we've got health, we've got games and technology, and they really focus on businesses working in esports. So it's really exciting, the various bits and pieces businesses that we get to work with. But specifically, I look after the engineering proposition. So for the last year, I've been leading the team. The team that we have for engineering sit in Whitehaven, Newcastle, Edinburgh, Cambridge, and Brighton. And all the engineers that we have there all come from really, really different backgrounds and really diverse different routes into engineering. We've got one or two people that have taken really traditional routes, and then a couple of people like me who've come in from different paths. And that gives us a really broad skill set, I guess, in terms of the different businesses that we can support. Specifically, what we're looking for is to support people in kind of industry 4.0. Now, if that's a new term to you, if you think back to your school days where you've talked about kind of industry 1 or 2.0, think about the industrial revolution and the steam-powered changes to industry when you start getting things that run more mechanically than physically. That's basically what we're talking about. Is industry 4.0 is where we are now. So it's all that new technology that's bringing in and taking people away from working directly with objects, and objects working with each other through the power of things like the internet, 5G, IoT, which is just kind of devices connecting online. So that's where we sit, and we look to support businesses within that space. Within the Eagle Labs engineers, what we do and the bits and pieces that we support with more specifically, we'll either work with kind of computer-aided design. So that would be kind of CAD/CAM stuff, where we'll go in and take a physical drawing and turn it into a digital object that can then be 3D printed or laser cutted or manufactured. We'll work within the Internet of Things and communications. So same thing that I said before, what we're talking about there is things connecting to the internet. But instead of you, say with your phone that connects to the internet, you input, say, a phone number and make a phone call, you're managing that process. When we're looking at things of the Internet of Things, we're really looking at things that are working with each other without human input. So say a sensor on a factory floor recognizes there's a problem, it sends a message to a computer system, which then makes a change without any human interaction at all. So that's kind of the new and upcoming spaces in things that connect to the internet. We work a lot in additive manufacturing, which is obviously the bits and pieces that I've spoken about in terms of 3D printers. We've got a range of different technology, whether that be kind of your traditional kind of FDM printers, which you may have in some of your schools, otherwise we certainly do have here. We also have some printers that work in resin and other materials, and we are connected with local universities who then have additional technology that can do things in carbon fibre and metal, for example, if you're doing something a bit more high end. We work a lot with electronics, and that might be more physical computer systems or physical kind of electronics boards. Say if you needed a system that had, instead of data that would run through the internet, it maybe had lights in it, or it had actuators that pushed things or moved things depending on an input. We also work quite a lot with various small devices and things like that in electronics, and our engineering Cambridge is an electronics specialist. We have product development specialists, so rather than looking at really specific areas of manufacturing, we can maybe look at taking someone along a journey. Our engineer in Edinburgh is an expert in design-led thinking, so what we'll then look at is, instead of looking at the problem and say, well, this is how we solve the problem, we're looking instead at how do you identify the problem? How do you really look at your user? Who's going to use your product? What are the challenges that they're going to face, and what's the journey that they go through when they interact with your product? So we look at things from that perspective as well, just to make sure, I guess sometimes if you come in with a preset idea about what your solution is, you may be inventing something or designing something that actually it's only you that wants to use it, which is fantastic if you want to create something new and great for your house, but might not be the best business idea. And then we've got visual design. So as you can tell, we've got quite a lot of creativity on our team and quite a lot of creative people. So we will have people that come to us for support for, say, packaging design, or maybe if someone's doing a pitch deck, so a presentation not too dissimilar to this, that they're going into a investment for, we might help them make that pitch deck look really pretty and really visually impactful, to help them maybe win business or win investment. So who will we work with? So we've got a number of different people that we'll work with. We've currently got someone that we're working with in terms of business support who's only 8 years old. And then we've got corporates that have been, founded for hundreds and hundreds of years. So literally anybody. Specifically, the people we're looking to work with are maybe sort of higher turnover businesses that are in the high growth sector, and a lot of startup businesses. So if you've got a fresh idea and you really need help getting off the ground, we're in that space to help you. Eagle Labs engineers, we're not here as consultants. We're not here to do it for you. We're here to do it with you. So we're really along that journey with, holding your hand so that you make the right decisions and you do that for yourselves. So, we end up doing some really kind of mad things. I'm going to talk a bit about Jersey Royal here, but this is, I am in that photograph, see if you can spot me. But that's a photograph taken with a farm that we're working with out in Jersey, who make potatoes, Jersey Royal potatoes, but we're supporting them with innovating some of their machinery as well as digitizing some of their tools, especially during COVID. They didn't have the ability to get school groups in, which they did an awful lot in the summer. So we've done a fully digital tour for them that they can put on live so that people can go in and look at the machinery and look at the processes completely virtually. So that's Jersey Royal. The other bits and pieces, I guess, that we've done with them is as an agriculture company. So agriculture companies, a lot of the time, they're very, very seasonal. So in the case of Jersey Royal, they would pay people to come over from Europe a lot of the time to come and help pick. They would go pick them up, drive them in. So like 600 people would come in and work that season. And I know way more about potatoes than I ever did before I started this job, but they have a really short season. It's kind of April until late summer. So during that time, everything that they do in terms of their staff pay and staff payroll bits and pieces was all done on paper. So think about that as a business. So 90% of the year, you're just ticking over. You've got your normal complement of HR and business staff that you deal with. And then suddenly for 6 months or 4 or 5 months in the middle of the year, you've got 600 bits of paper coming into your office. It was really disruptive, but they didn't have the ability to go in and do too much. And a lot of HR software is quite expensive. So one of our previous engineers based in Brighton was working with them on how they might be able to integrate, you will have seen them just tap in, tap out cards. You might have access cards for some of your schools to get through security gates. So they worked with them to pull out some data from tap in, tap out cards that we could make for them onto a spreadsheet. simple as that, but really had a massive impact on what they could do. We've also looked at various other bits and pieces that are really manual processes for them. So they take soil samples weekly so that they can check how many pesticides there are on the soil. And those pesticides are washed and crushed and counted manually. And so we were helping them look at different ways that they can process those images to speed them up. I think when I went to see them in June, granted it was June 2019, but they were still processing samples from February. So to give you an idea, if you were trying to make a decision about how much pesticides to put on your land, you really want to make that decision with real-time information rather than something that's come 6 months ago. So those are the kind of things we've done for a really large corporate, which is Jersey Royal, who are super exciting. But yeah, so they're quite a big organization. There's another business that we've worked with as an example, which is a much smaller, well, were a much smaller business. So Hindsight Vision came to me in the summer of, I think it was like 2019. They had this idea. They'd already gone and won Scottish Edge funding, which is an innovation award that you can apply for in Scotland. But they didn't have anyone that could do the CAD bits for them. They had, you know, fully engineered drawings and everything else. So we've been working with Hindsight for, I think it ended up being about 2 years. They launched in the spring of 2021. To create these. So these images that you see are not photographs, they're all completely digital. Obviously the one on the left looks really digital, but the one on the right was something we helped them to create for their marketing campaign, which they did on Kickstarter. They went into Kickstarter and I think they made about 300% of their revenue of what they were looking for to fund their business, and they've since done several other investment rounds and they've launched their product. What it is to say rear view mirror glasses, but without looking really kind of corny. It just has a slight angled lens on the inside of the frame with a mirrored section which allows you to be able to see behind you. But obviously that's really innovative in the cycling space. It creates a lot of extra safety and things like that. But yeah, so we've designed the CAD for them based on their kind of dimensions, and that supported them with 3D printing prototypes as well as kind of bits and pieces. And with a design like this, obviously it's not a one and done job. We've worked with that client for 18 months or so, kind of helping them iterate the design before they were ready to go into manufacturing and launch. And I think if you look online, you can buy these directly from the website now, but they have made a lot of splash in the road cycling world. And that's it. I mean, obviously I'm more than happy to take kind of any questions or anything that you've got. I can go into more detail about any bits and pieces about who I am and what I've done, but that should give you a really quick overview to Eagle Labs and Eagle Labs Engineering. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions from anybody.
Thanks, Robin. That was great. If you have got any questions, if you either want to unmute yourself and ask them, or drop some in the chat at the side, and we can facilitate that from here. Give people a chance to.
I mean, I'd love to hear from you guys as well. If you don't have any questions right now, let us know kind of where are you and what is it that you're kind of focusing on your studies at the moment, or what are your picks that you're doing for your modules at school?
Hi there, this is Berwick Academy. We're class 9BSc3. We've got options evening coming up. And for someone who's maybe thinking of working in engineering, what advice would you give? What subjects do you think they should be thinking about opting for?
Now, absolutely honestly, from my experience, there's so many different routes into engineering that I would really look at picking subjects that you're really passionate about. Personally, however, if you want to go on a traditional route to engineering, I would really sit and have a little look through. There's a careers website from the government about what kind of road that you're looking to take, because it's a really vast subject. So if you want to follow my path, I would really kind of look maybe taking a design subject, a science maybe, and maybe something in mathematics. But if you really wanted to go into process control engineering, for example, which I haven't spoken about a great deal now, but it's where you really kind of measuring systems, you really do need maths. I've had to restudy maths for some bits and pieces, and physics. But yeah, if you wanted to go in kind of digital additive manufacturing, that actually things like graphic design can be, you know, having design principles are really useful, and maybe a couple of DT subjects. It depends on what your school offers. It's been a while since I picked modules, but yeah, it depends. But if you are someone that's, you know, not super confident in maths or not super confident in science, there are different routes in depending on the role. So I would certainly do some exploring and reach out to some people that do that role to get an idea of what they think their top skill set would be.
That's great, thank you.
Thanks,
I've got
Robin.
a question if you don't mind, Robin.
How about it?
So just either in engineering in general or your job or the kind of way you've studied it, what kind of challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
So again, and this is something I'll constantly speak back to, the importance of creativity in engineering. So the biggest problems that we get are really in that problem solving space. So we get given a challenge and you have to overcome it with whatever means necessary. So I'm just trying to think, quite a few of the companies that I work with are all kind of pre-patented, so I'm not able to speak about it until they've kind of launched their business. But 100%, you know, there are a couple of different things in that space where actually you end up leading on that creativity side of things, and that the creative skill set that we've got allows you to think outside the box a little bit and come up with new and innovative situations to maybe use equipment in new ways or use materials in new ways. So that's that space. I guess the other bits and pieces is there's still a, you know, if it's all right me saying, there's still a massive issue with representation in engineering. I think there's things that especially some of the software city and things are doing from a grassroots level. Like you're seeing the industry change, but it's still very slow from a top end bits and pieces. So in terms of that, I think, you know, if there's any people that are interested in engineering, whether they be women, whether they be young people, or whether they be people from different kind of ethnic backgrounds, then, you know, I think it's really important to kind of be really visible and seen. Because when I was your age, I was dissuaded at school from taking an electronics subject because I was a female and things like that. So that's definitely something that's still a feature, but it's getting better much quicker because of sessions like this and other bits and pieces of well-spoken people in the industry. That's
brilliant, thank you. Yeah, my background's DT teaching, and a lot of the stereotypes girls won't take it, so it's really good that the barriers are kind of being broken down.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic, absolutely brilliant. I mean, to be honest, we've got some really great females on our team, and we are currently female strong in that we've got more girls than we've got men, which is fine. Like that's happened by accident, but there are so many great spaces that are really female strong within the Northeast that really encourage girls into making. And I think DT subjects, like I had a really great like art DT teacher when I was younger, that would really encourage it to get dirty and get messy, which I think, you know, at any age is a non-gendered subject. Do you know what I mean? But anyway.
Quick question from me, Robin. What would you say is the most interesting part of your role?
The people that I get to work with, honestly, like from a day-to-day, I've got a number of businesses at all levels, you know, or we'll meet politicians, we'll meet students that are doing really fascinating things and kind of breaking down barriers. We'll meet people like yourselves who are working a great deal with a range of different businesses. And like whoever would have thought 10 years ago, like I loved my job in glass and ceramics and I loved what I did and I met a whole range of people, but whoever thought that I'd be going out to Jersey and standing in a potato farm, and some of the sites that we get to see is just fantastic. So, you know, to be honest, that's, you know, that's the thing going into a business like this. Like what we do is great, but the people we meet is even better.
Brilliant. And one last question for me, unless any of the schools have got any questions, what advice would you give to a 15-year-old Robin?
Just in any context or just being 15? In
terms of career, and pursuing your passion.
So yeah, so I guess career-wise, when you're 15, like every single door is still open to you. Like I mean, I'm in my second career now, and I started this in my late 20s, essentially, in terms of, you know, engineering. So what I would say is don't be afraid to try something out of your comfort zone. and be a bit bullish. Like, I think the number of people in my position that are more than happy to have a 15-30-minute conversation with somebody else so they can get experience. We do it all the time in tech, is that we'll say, oh, you know, such and such is looking to maybe move from software engineering to website engineering. We'll have a chat about what that job is like. But I don't remember being encouraged to do that when I was younger. Which might be completely different now, to be fair. It's been a while since I was in high school, but if I was a 15-year-old, well, when I was an intern at Glass, I used to just pick up the phone to companies and say, hey, can I come and shadow you for the day? Hey, can I come in and see what you're doing? Now, a lot of people will probably say no, just because sometimes it's in the way, but I would totally do that. If there's a job you're really interested in, or a potential career path, like, I would definitely go to career fairs, speak to people, but pick up the phone to founders, especially, to say, hey, can you tell me more about your journey? And I think it's really insightful.
Excellent. That's been brilliant, Robin. Thank you. Just for the schools, if you do have any more questions following on from this session, I appreciate that you're probably getting ready to log off now, because that's the half hour nearly done. If you want to email them over to your contact within our team, and we'll facilitate that with Robin, and we'll make sure that we get the answers back to you. But yes, thank you very much, Robin. That was really, really interesting, really insightful, and hopefully the schools took a lot from that. And the students have got some food for thought around where they'll go next with options and such like.
Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.